S-P-E-A-K. Everybody wanna sing. Speak up. S-P-E-A-K. Speak up.
Welcome to the Speak Up English channel. Are you ready to embark on an exciting journey of language learning? At Speak Up, we're passionate about helping you improve your English listening skills. Our lessons are packed with engaging content, including short talks, conversations, reports, news, and captivating short stories. So, grab your headphones, sit back, and let's dive into the world of English together. Remember, every word you listen to brings you one step closer to fluency. Let's make this learning adventure fun and rewarding. Subscribe now and join our community at the Speak Up English channel. Let's learn, laugh, and grow together. Subscribe to Speak Up.
Bedside manners and more. Talking things through. Medical AIs with human faces are on their way.
Asked about the future of artificially intelligent avatars in medicine, Nova is optimistic, as well she might be. As a brand ambassador for Soul Machines, based in Auckland, the hub of New Zealand's visual effects industry, it is her job to play up the personalised and interactive experiences such avatars will provide, as they help with virtual consultations and assist with post-operative rehabilitation. As she explains this to your correspondent online, she looks me in the eye and responds to what I say with approving nods and smiles. Told I have been off colour since my last meal, she says, "Oh no," with a concerned frown, before suggesting ginger tea or some over-the-counter medication. The wide blue ribbon she wears over her right shoulder, she tells me, is a symbol of my existence as a digital person and my connection to Soul Machines, the company that created me. Greg Cross, Nova's boss at Soul Machines, says Nova's ability to respond appropriately comes from 10 years of research into cognitive modelling that seeks to capture functions such as learning and emotional response. Her face conveys those responses by means of software descended from that used for computer-generated characters in movies. What she says comes in part from a version of OpenAI's ChatGPT, a system powered by a large language model, or LLM. Mr. Cross thinks such avatars are going to be an increasingly important way for companies to communicate with people, and that they are going to prove irresistibly useful for health systems where the need for something like the human touch increasingly outstrips the number of trained humans available to do the professionally appropriate touching. People have long been keen to ask questions about their health on the internet. Google's search engine handles about 1 billion of them a day. Medical charities, patient groups, drug makers and healthcare providers put up scads of information for it to serve up. But this is hardly a guarantee that those who consult Dr. Google will come away well informed. An interest in trustworthy evidence has led to the development of bespoke chatbots designed to teach patients about public health issues and help them work out what their symptoms might mean. Florence was created by the World Health Organization, WHO, Google and Amazon Web Services during the COVID-19 pandemic to combat mis- and disinformation. Since then, her knowledge base has expanded to include smoking, mental health and eating sensibly. But she is no one's idea of good company. Ada Health, a German firm, offers a text-based symptom-checking chatbot that navigates a carefully structured database containing thousands of pieces of medical data carefully curated by doctors. It uses the patient's responses to generate and work through a sequence of questions, and then provides a list of possible diagnoses with the likelihood of each. Launched in 2016, it has 13 million users, about 1/3 of them in India, Asia and Africa. Ada's central probabilistic reasoning engine is nothing like as complex as the LLMs recently unleashed on the world. Using it is a bit plodding, but it is also reliable, with no hallucinations and, crucially, explainable. When Ada assigns probabilities to diagnoses, it is possible to work out exactly how it has calculated them. This reliability and explainability has allowed it to gain regulatory approval as a medical device in Germany and many other countries. Anyone trying to get a ChatGPT-like system based on an LLM approved in the same way would face daunting hurdles based on its source data, its reliability, the reproducibility of its answers, and the explainability of its process. As Hugh Harvey of Hardian Health asks, if the inputs are essentially infinite and the outputs are essentially infinite, how do you prove it's safe? That does not mean that LLMs have nothing to say about health. Quite the contrary. The internet is awash with claims about ChatGPT's ability to diagnose perplexing medical dilemmas, analyze blood tests, or figure out what a specialist doctor is testing for. Because the huge bodies of information on which they are trained include medical texts, LLMs can respond to quite recondite medical queries convincingly, even though not deliberately trained with that in mind. In 2023, researchers rated ChatGPT's performance in the United States medical licensing exam as equivalent to that of a third-year medical student. For a piece of software to do that well would have been more or less unthinkable 5 years ago. In a recent study, a version of ChatGPT based on the GPT-4, OpenAI's biggest publicly accessible model, outperformed the responses human candidates give in a neurology board exam. Even when the model answered incorrectly, it did so with a great deal of confidence, which is bad for a medical device but not unheard of among consultants. Given such facility, there is no doubt that the medical advice people get from LLMs can be accurate and appropriate. But that does not mean it will always be so. Some is likely to be wrong and potentially dangerous. The regulatory challenges implicit in the opaque way LLMs work have led many to conclude that they are currently unregulatable in areas where mistakes can be lethal, such as diagnostics. Some in the industry are looking for middle ways in which at least some of their attributes can be safely put to other sorts of work. Claire Noverol, the founder of Ada Health, says that the strength of LLMs is their ability to take everyday speech as an input. It allows them to get more information out of patients than a questionnaire can. This is one of the reasons she and her colleagues are trying to augment Ada's probabilistic approach with an LLM. When applied in the right context, she says, its abilities enable better, broader, and more granular assessments of symptoms and health needs. One technique, which they and others are trying out, is retrieval-augmented generation, which allows LLMs to extract answers from a verified source of external data. Another approach is to use LLMs drawing from verified medical sources as advisors to healthcare professionals, rather than to the public at large. Google has developed an LLM that has been fine-tuned on medical data to provide diagnostic support for clinicians in difficult cases. Hippocratic AI, a Silicon Valley startup, is devoted to building new LLMs specific to healthcare. It says they outperformed GPT-4 on all sorts of medical exams and certification tests, and it recently raised $50 million in new money, despite prominently displaying on its website its unvarnished belief that LLMs today are not safe enough for clinical diagnosis. Investors seem to see its plans to support trained staff and provide advice to patients either as promising enough on their own or as a path to something better. There is also some optimism about the relationship-like connections people form with LLMs. They might prove useful in the management of long-lasting ailments or in providing psychological support for some mental health conditions. In Nigeria, the healthcare firm MDoc has created a ChatGPT-powered service for mobile phones to offer health coaching for people living with chronic conditions such as diabetes or high blood pressure. No such systems offer the real empathy of a human interlocutor, but at least one study has found that ChatGPT's responses to real-world health questions were preferred over those of licensed professionals, both for their quality and empathy. Accounts of the relationships some people form with AI services, like Replica, a chatbot made by Luca of San Francisco, make it possible to imagine a future in which friend bots and health bots converge. Chatbots, originally built to provide relationships, that have subsequently been given an added ability to provide health advice, might compete with chatbots built for medicine whose designers are improving their social skills. There are also some human qualities that AI systems may be well rid of. One is moral judgment. When it comes to sexual health, people often fail to seek help because they do not want the conversation that would enable it. Catherine Govertson, a researcher at Wits University in South Africa, is running trials of a chatbot to improve the accuracy of HIV risk assessments. She found that people seem to find it easier to disclose their sexual history to a chatbot than to a nurse. Alain Lebrique, the Director of Digital Health and Innovation at the WHO, sees, in follow-ons to Florence, the opportunity to create a realistic interface where you could further reduce the barrier to people seeking information, whether adolescents looking for guidance on safer sex or family planning, or folks looking for information about respiratory illnesses. That said, Dr. Lebrique and others worry about the technology's abuse. The thought of what sophisticated AI could do to spread public health disinformation, he says, keeps him up at night. As well as worries about the quality of information going out, there are also worries about what might happen to information going in, both in terms of having training data suitably anonymized and ensuring that chats with chatbots stay confidential.
Listen carefully.
And now, to movies. We meet Anne Hathaway, star of Becoming Jane.
The film Becoming Jane, directed by Julian Jarrold, tells the story of Jane Austen, the author of such classic novels as Emma, Pride and Prejudice, and Sense and Sensibility. Jane Austen died a spinster in 1817 at the age of 41. It is believed that she started to write in her 20s after a failed love affair with a young man called Tom Lefroy. Becoming Jane chronicles the affair, and even though it is a very English story, it was filmed in Ireland and stars an American, Anne Hathaway, whose resume includes The Devil Wears Prada and Brokeback Mountain. As she explains, much of the drama unfolds during dances or balls, which were a key social event in Georgian England.
At a ball, it was a chance if you were asked to dance. That was kind of one of the only times that you could talk without being overheard. Usually at the end of or during a dance, one couple is kind of they're the resting couple, and so they would actually be able to have a free opportunity to talk. And if a turn on the dance floor took 10 minutes, they would be free to have a 10-minute conversation. In a way, it was one of the only opportunities you had to find out if this person that you maybe want to marry is a complete bore, or if you could see yourself with them. They had to make snap decisions with very little information. Usually people knew more about their property than their personality. And so I think probably the best comparison would be kind of like a rock concert, and the level of excitement and anticipation. And especially, I think, the more out into the country you got, the more people got excited about it because they were just kind of waiting for something to do.
Becoming Jane's cast includes the great Vanessa Redgrave, while Julie Waters plays Jane's mother and James Cromwell plays her father.
Jane had a really loving relationship with her father, and that he was really supportive, and he was one of the people that gave her intellectual access to what was available at the time. You get the impression that she didn't have quite so close a relationship with her mother. Mrs. Austen wrote this wonderful letter to Mary Lloyd, who was her, I think had just become her daughter-in-law. And she said, you know, Cassandra will be joining us again later on this year, etc. She said, and Jane, only the Lord knows when. And I think Mrs. Austen and Jane were more alike than either one of them really wanted to admit. But I don't get the impression that they got along very well. I think Jane loved her mother but was exasperated by her. And I think Mrs. Austen probably felt the same way.
The part of Tom Lefroy is played by James McAvoy, whose performances in The Last King of Scotland and Atonement have made him a rising star. He was surprised that many English people didn't like the idea of Jane Austen being played by an American.
I don't really know why it's such a stigma. I mean, you know, I'm Scottish and I've made my career playing Englishmen, really. Americans, Irishmen, whatever. You know, Americans play different people from all over the place, and it's fine. But there's some kind of stigma attached to an American playing an English person, which I find really strange. I think it's the same as usual. You get the best actor for the job, you know, and we've undoubtedly got the best Jane that we could find. As a director, you pick your guy who you think, through them, you can express your vision of your story. And Julian has picked Annie because he can express through her. She's the right actress for him, you know. And for us, I can't think of another Jane now. She's brilliant.
Listen carefully. You will hear a conversation between a student looking for a host family and a housing advisor.
Good morning. How can I help you?
Good morning. I understand you help fix up students with host families.
That's right. Are you interested in...
Yes.
Well, please sit down and I'll just take a few details.
Thank you.
Right. Now, what name is it?
Jenny Chan.
Can you spell that, please?
Yes. JENNYCHAN.
Right. And what is your present address?
Seaview Guest House, 14 Hill Road.
Okay. And do you know the phone number there?
Yes, I have it here. 2237676. But I'm only there after about 7 p.m.
So when would be the best time to catch you?
I suppose between 9 and, let me see, past, before I leave for the college.
Great. And can I ask you your age?
I've just had my 19th birthday.
And how long would you want to stay with the host family?
I'm planning on staying a year, but at the moment I'm definitely here for 4 months only. I have to get an extension to my permit.
You're working on it? Fine. And what will be your occupation while you're in the UK?
Studying English?
And what would you say your level of English is?
Good, I think. I'd like to say advanced, but my written work is below the level of my spoken, so I suppose it's intermediate.
Certainly your spoken English is advanced. Anyway, which area do you think you would prefer?
Well, I'm studying right in the centre, but I'd really like to live in the northwest.
That shouldn't be a great problem. We usually have lots of families up there. And do you have any particular requirements for diet?
Well, I'm nearly a vegetarian. Not quite.
Shall I say you are? It's probably easier that way.
That would be best.
Anything about your actual room?
I would prefer my own facilities. En suite, is that right? And also, if it's possible, a TV. And I'd also like the house to have a real garden, rather than just a yard. Somewhere I could sit and be peaceful.
Is that all?
Well, I'm really serious about improving my English, so I'd prefer to be the only guest, if that's possible.
No other guests. Yes, you get more practice that way. Anyway, obviously, all this is partly dependent on how much you're willing to pay. What did you have in mind?
I was thinking in terms of about 60 to 80 pounds a week, but I'd go up to 100 if it was something special.
Well, I don't think we'd have any problems finding something for you.
Oh, good.
And when would you want it for?
I'd like to move in approximately 2 weeks.
Let me see, it's the 10th today. So if we go for the Monday, it's the 23rd of March.
Yes.
Right. Good. And if I could ask one last question.
Listen carefully. You will hear a speech by an official at a meeting of a local football club at the start of a new football season.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming to the soccer club meeting. It's good to see so many parents and children here tonight, and I know you're looking forward to a great football season. Now, I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you about some changes to the soccer club for the coming season. Now, this season, we'll be playing all our matches for both the junior and senior competitions at Kings Park, instead of Royal Park, which was used last season. Now, for meetings, we're going to use the clubhouse in Kings Park, and the next meeting will be held in the clubhouse on the 2nd of July. As usual, we hope to begin the season with a picnic next Saturday at the clubhouse. Please try and come to the picnic, as it's always good fun. The last week of the season, we usually have a dinner and presentation of prizes to the players, and more information about this will be given to you later in the season. This season, we have more teams than ever. We hope to have 10 teams instead of 5 in the junior competition, and they'll play on Saturday mornings beginning at 8:30 a.m. Training sessions will be held in Kings Park on Wednesday afternoons for the juniors, and they will be wearing red shirts again this year. In the senior competition, there'll be 4 teams, same as last year, and their games will be played on Saturday afternoons starting at 2:30. It will be at a 2 o'clock start, and the training session for seniors is planned for Sunday afternoons. Now, I'd like to introduce you to the new committee for the soccer club for this season. Firstly, let me welcome Robert Young, the new president, who will manage the meetings for the next 2 years. Robert's son has been playing football with the club for over 5 years now, and many thanks to Robert for taking on the job of president. Next, we have Gina Costello. She's the treasurer, and she'll collect the fees from you for the season. Please try and give Gina your fees as early as possible in the season, as the club needs the money to buy some new equipment. Then there's David West, who's volunteered to be the club secretary, and one of the many jobs he'll have is to send out newsletters to you regularly. If you have any information that may be useful, please let David know so that it can be included in these newsletters. Also, I'd like to introduce you to Jason Dokic, who is the head coach. For all the new members here tonight, this is the 3rd year that Jason has been with us as head coach, and we're very lucky to have such an experienced coach and former player at our club. He will continue to supervise the teams at training sessions and on match days. Now, before we finish and have some refreshments, does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask the new committee?